Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk a little bit more about Storycraft. Today it's going to be the revolutionary and his counterpart, the reformer. I talked a little bit about this in the code gas analysis that I did, but I want to expand upon it a little bit and do a Storycraft video, especially on these archetypes that are usually facing off against each other. Now, I should mention that the revolutionary doesn't always need a reformer to be his counterpart, but these things occur very often as a pair because they make a great set of conflicts. Because each of these two different archetypes represents a different approach to conflict itself. The revolutionary wants to completely change a system. They want to wipe away the government. They want to overthrow the government and replace it with a better government. They want to change society. They want to remake society. They want to reform culture. They want everything to be changed from the ground up, from the bottom to the top. They want everything to be redone. Whereas the reformer, maybe they want things to improve, but they are intensely interested in the process costs. They are worried about the cost of trying to change into some other thing. Even if there's an imperfect thing in society, they're not going to wipe it away if it will cost more. So they tend to be a more piecemeal kind of reformer, and also somebody who's very much about weighing costs and benefits. If it would kill people to enact the revolution, then you wouldn't do it because it would be wrong to kill the people, and you are not gaining enough by harming lots of people in order to enact a change that maybe the end result might be good, but the cost of doing it along the way is something that is too much to bear. So these tend to occur in pairs because it makes a great antagonist and protagonist, where you have a protagonist is usually the revolutionary and the antagonist is usually the reformer. That doesn't mean that the protagonist is the good guy. In fact, very often you will see these archetypes in tragedies because I think they fit very, very well for tragedies. See, the revolutionary views the end as something that justifies the means, or views the unpleasant means as necessary for achieving the ends. And the reason that fits very good in tragedy is because by doing things that you would normally consider wrong or bad in order to achieve a good end, it pollutes the soul. It has an effect on the soul and can cause the downfall of the character. And there you have a good tragic character arc where you have a character with noble and good intentions who does things which are a bit ignoble at the very least, and ends up falling and becoming a sinful or bad person towards the end of it. They end up suffering a downfall both morally and perhaps in terms of status and things like that. The reformer, on the other hand, is an antagonist, is someone trying to stop the revolution because they view the revolution as having too high process costs or engaging in moral actions that are bad in and of themselves. So if you think about not just two approaches to conflict, but two approaches to ethics, the revolutionary views the end as justifying the means. That is, as long as the end is good, the means that are used to achieve it are excusable. Whereas the reformer has maybe a more deontological view of ethics, where certain things are always wrong to do, even if they bring about good results. And so there's so many great examples of these two archetypes working against each other. One of the ones that I wanted to bring up, because I haven't done the analysis on it yet, but it fits great into what I want to talk about for this, is actually Death Note, another very popular anime. And I think there was a Netflix movie adaptation. I wasn't about to watch a Netflix movie adaptation of a good anime. I would say just watch the anime or read the manga. But in Death Note, you have this character, Light Yagami, and he gets a death note. He gets this thing sent by Shinigami, a death god, that if he writes a name down in the book, it will kill that person. So he gets the power to kill basically anybody by writing their name in the book. Now, he's a person who has a very noble spirit in that he wants society to be better, but he fits that category of the revolutionary. The revolutionary, he wants to make society better, and the way that he views as making society better is by killing people that are bad. So there you have this core conflict I'm talking about right up front. You have a end result that you want. We're going to make society a better place for the good people by eliminating the bad people. The bad people will be killed and eliminated, and they will prevent bad things from happening in the world. That's the basic. That's Light's basic idea. So he takes it upon himself to bear the burden of killing people. Now, through the process of doing that, Light Yagami actually suffers a moral downfall, because by killing people, he actually becomes categorically the kind of person that he is killing. That is, he becomes a person who kills without, not in self-defense. He views his reasons as good, but towards the end of the series, he starts to stretch that more and more to the point where he is killing, really engaging in a variety of different acts besides killing people, manipulating people, engaging in, I don't want to give out too many spoilers, but engaging in a variety of things that are, shall we say, immoral, in order to preserve his own life and his ability to write down those names in the notebook. So he basically transforms into that which he's seeking to kill by using the book. And that, I think that represents the core of the moral conflict of the series right there in that little bull. Now, he is opposed by the antagonist of the story. Now, Light is kind of an anti-hero, we'd say, or maybe a tragic hero in a sense. But he's opposed by L, whose name we don't really learn right away. He just goes by L, the pseudonym. This very mysterious character initially, and then he turns into a very eccentric character when you actually meet him. But he is very, very dedicated to stopping what people call Kira, which is just a Japanese phoneticization of killer. He's trying to stop Kira. Why? Because Kira is killing people. Why? He's only killing bad people. But see, L understands that the problem with taking it upon yourself to kill people, rather than putting people through a system, a justice system, which will bring punishment on them, is that gives too much power in the hands of the one person. And that one person starts to just be the same as what he's killing. He's a killer. That's why he's called a killer. And because he's a killer, he has to be brought to justice. So there's an absolute moral threshold that L says you can't walk past, and therefore he's opposed to Kira, Light Yagami's character. Basically, even though towards the end of the series, Kira can look and say, look, I've improved society by killing all these people. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he has somehow improved society by killing people. Doing it is wrong. So there's the evocation of this absolute moral standard is in violation. And we can only really bring punishment upon people by spreading that out a little bit and doing that in the justice system, where lots of people are able to weigh in on the guilt or innocence of a person. That's why we have things like juries, why we spread the decision for life and death across 12 people rather than just a single judge who's empowered to deliver a death sentence onto somebody. It's an important idea that you're going to distribute the guilt of deciding who's actually going to kill someone, so that it lessens that impact and absolves people of that. Anyway, so there's right there a great dichotomy of those two characters. L is always going to be, and then L is succeeded by some other characters as time goes on. He's always going to be opposed to what Kira is doing, regardless of the outcome, because he views what he's doing as morally wrong. The process is incorrect. It's not just process costs, but the process is incorrect as well. There's process costs in that people are dying, people maybe who could have been reformed are going to be killed, as well as an effect on society, which maybe has a chilling effect on people, makes people afraid. There's lots of process costs involved in what's going on there. But it's certainly not the only example of this dichotomy. You even have it in Star Wars, especially in Revenge of the Sith, the third prequel movie, where you have Anakin, not necessarily with an antagonist that is opposed to him, that's a reformer. If anyone was going to fit that bill, it would probably be Obi-Wan, but he doesn't really fit into the reformer archetype quite as neatly as maybe some other stories. But definitely Anakin is a revolutionary. He wants things to change. At a certain point, he's talking to Obi-Wan and he says, I have brought peace to my new empire. He has reformed the Republic into something that he thinks is better for order and things like that. He comes to the dark side basically with noble intentions. I want to save my wife. I want to save the Republic. The Jedi are going to arrest the Chancellor. They're against the system. They're against democracy. And through that ends up being converted into the revolutionary that ends up being completely evil in what he does. So by abandoning, in one way, he gets seduced into the dark side through the appeal to the process. Hey, they're going to arrest the Chancellor. When Mace Windu says he's too dangerous to be left alive, Anakin makes his move and protects Darth Sidious. But through that, he ends up losing his moral compass and ends up doing really horrible things, including murdering children, in order to bring about his revolution, to create the order that he desires. So it's a great example of how a character can suffer a tragic downfall, be perverted by noble intentions, and then become the opposite of what they thought they were. Rather than preserving the Republic, he destroys it. And this is something that you see like going all the way back to Shakespeare. And I think the tragedy of Julius Caesar is probably a pretty good example of this, where you have a character, Brutus, who is basically seduced into murdering his friend for the sake of the Republic. And it's through his actions he's actually starts engaging in revolutionary activities. He murders a very popular statesman, and then the fallout from that, of course, is war. Now, he doesn't live to see that, and this is not addressed in the drama that Shakespeare wrote, but his actions ultimately led to the permanent reformation of the Republic into what we think of as the Roman Empire, the change from the Republic period into the official imperial period with the rise of Augustus. So I think that's a great example too. I think these themes can echo very, very, very far back. If you look back even into maybe Greek myth or, Greek drama, you have elements of this where a character wants to do something very profound and revolutionary, and the cost of that ends up being his soul, that he ends up doing things which are reprehensible or upset the gods, and is forced into a place where he has to suffer a tragic downfall. There's even versions of, say, the Trojan War story where Agamemnon has to engage in human sacrifice in order for his fleet to set sail. And the engaging in human sacrifice allows him to fulfill his duty to his brother, and in leading this expedition to Troy to fight this war. And the sacrifice was demanded by a god, but it also brings about tragedy upon him, because a human sacrifice is also reprehensible. So he's kind of in a situation where he cannot adequately fulfill everything that he's asked to do, and has to do a reprehensible act. Now, he's not really a revolutionary in that sense, but some of these themes, I think, go really, really far back into antiquity. Anyway, so I'm sure there's other characters that you can think of that fit these archetypes between, say, revolutionary, like I talked in Code Geass. You have Lelouch, who is the revolutionary, and he wants to destroy the Britannian Empire and reform society and make a new Japan where people can be free. And he also wants to take revenge on his siblings and his father for the downfall of his mother and his own sister's downfall. And then you have on the other side his friend Suzaku, who is the classic reformer. He is a Japanese working in a system that oppresses Japanese people and calls them 11s. They call them by a number. They're not even allowed to call themselves Nihonjin, which means Japanese. They can't call themselves Nihonjin, and he's okay with that because he wants to work within the system to give more respect to Japanese people, give Japanese people more rights. He wants to change the system from within it by being an absolute model citizen. And through the course of the story, and here's some spoilers, you come to learn that he murdered his father at one point in order to stop his father from continuing to resist the invasion of Japan. So the reason he kills his father is because he's concerned with process costs, is that it will kill so many people if you keep resisting. But if I just kill my father, then that will end the resistance and many people will be saved from death because of the invasion. And so he engages in a reprehensible act, and that comes back and haunts him, and he ends up being basically flipped from someone who's concerned with process costs to somebody who is willing to sacrifice the means for the ends. Whereas Lelouch, right away from the beginning, is saying, I will make sacrifices, I will do things which are bad in order to achieve my ends. And then he can't really pay that cost at the end of the series. At the end of the series, he's asked to pay too dear a process cost, and he has to pull back, and he has to, and he basically loses his final battle because he is unwilling to pay the moral and physical cost in order to gain victory. The process cost becomes too great for the revolutionary. And for the reformer, the temptation to do evil or to do wicked things in order to achieve a good end becomes too great as well. So it's a great flipping of these archetypes that occurs in that anime. Anyway, you see it a lot in tragedies, and so I'm sure you can think of more examples, and you can probably give some down in the comments down below. But this video's gone on for 15 minutes, and I figure that's enough to introduce this revolutionary archetype and his usual counterpart of the reformer. So thanks so much, guys, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Take it easy.